Tony Kinnett.
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 Host of the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Let's get down to business.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Well, it is good to be with you this evening. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast for the last time from this studio we're currently in. It's been a blast over the last year getting to work out of what can only be described as a 10-foot by 10-foot bedroom out of the house here in Greenfield. The new studio construction is almost finished. We are so excited to share some of the stuff that's gone into it, a larger set, some special guests lined up. Most importantly, though, fresh out of the new studio, we will have our ultimate election coverage, and I got some pretty cool news about that as well. So, our ultimate election coverage by popular demand. After many of you tuned in for our longer than usual shows across our syndicated network and the live streams here on X and YouTube, we had a bit of an opportunity to bring in some top tier, extremely phenomenal guests. And even better, we have had the opportunity to fly out and drive out producers from North Carolina, from Pennsylvania. Elise McHugh from the Daily Signal is going to be joining me as my co-host for the evening, and we are going to provide for you 7 straight hours of on-air analysis, coverage, and most importantly, shenanigans as the polls close. Some of the exciting news about that, just, by the way, happens to be that more stations, both radio and TV, are picking us up by the day. So there might be a chance that we might be beating out one of the local affiliates in your market. And that starts with, the way that really every great election night coverage should start, with some fresh ribeyes, prepared rare and medium rare for Elise, from Well Done Beef, great sponsor of the show. Love getting to enjoy that. So instead of a big, huge kickoff at 7, right when the polls close, we're going to be starting at 6 p.m. and enjoying a delicious steak, maybe a cigar, who knows? The most American thing you can do, though, is tuning in, because the Democrats cannot stop digging themselves large holes. Now, every time you think that they've hit rock bottom, and there have been plenty of rock bottoms in this particular election season. This October has been an October surprise-a-thon. Move over, Toyota-thon. The Democrats have got all the October surprises that they can stuff into one election, culminating in, as we talked about yesterday, during Kamala's big, huge, super unity, tree-hugging, kumbaya, farewell last argument. Joe Biden stepped up in front of the country on the Zoom call and called all of Trump's supporters garbage. And this was a problem for a number of reasons. And as I had predicted before, the real crime committed by Joseph R. Biden, other than being a complete idiot, is that he had taken the attention away from Donald Trump and instead made the Harris-Walz campaign basically play defense for the very last week of the election, which is the one thing you do not want to do. So you thought you've seen flailing and dodging and freaking out before from the Harris-Walz campaign. You ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to talk about that a little bit more because right now, at least, before we get to the weird alienation of every possible demographic that the Democrats can appeal to, we got to talk about where we are in the polling. Now, if you out there, boys, girls, and squirrels, are thinking you're hit with all kinds of polls all the time, you don't know really how they're working out, and you don't know whether to trust them or not, and you really aren't sure if we should be following trend lines or individual point data or swing data or the national data, here's my suggestion. We go to the pollsters that have adapted how they view and present the data since 2016, 2020, and 2022, which brings us to Atlas Intel. Atlas Intel, as producer Daniel Elmore walked me through this afternoon, was the most accurate pollster of the major pollsters in 2020, and they were one of the most accurate pollsters in 2022, at a time when, none of the polls were correct. So this is what Atlas currently has. Harris versus Trump in the swing states. In North Carolina, Trump is up 3.7 points. In Georgia, Trump is up 2.3 points. In Arizona, this one is incredible. Trump is up 4.2 points. In Nevada, Trump is up by 3.6 points. In Wisconsin, remember the one that I said that was most likely for Trump to lose in this particular election of the blue wall? Trump is down 0.2. Kamala is up 0.2. It's still a toss-up race, but again, the suburban woman vote in Wisconsin is strong. In Michigan, Trump is up 0.6. In Pennsylvania, Trump is up 1.5. These are incredibly close numbers, but with Atlas pushing out this particular poll right before the election, guys, it ain't looking like it's going to be an easy breeze hanging out among the trees kind of election. Now, it could be. My personal prediction is still that we will know the winner of the race by November 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I actually have a little bit of money riding on that with 93 WIBC's Jason Hammer. Might be a very stupid bet that I've made, but hey, I'm just that lovable Hoosier that makes those kind of decisions that you're more than welcome to scoff at later. There are new toss-ups to the race. My wild card is that Virginia, whether it goes blue or red, will be within 12,000 votes, and more so, that Virginia is the most likely to flip red. New Hampshire is also in this particular category, and the early voting continues to be, for better or for worse, very positive for Republicans. And I've heard this criticism from some on the right saying that Republicans coming out to vote early isn't good because it cannibalizes the Republican vote on Election Day. No, that's not how that works. Now, could they be cannibalizing the traditional Republican turnout on Election Day? Well, sure they could. But is that a bad thing? No. Unlike dead people in Chicago, in this particular election, usually you can only vote once. And once you've voted, it is counted whether you vote on Election Day or days before. I would personally recommend that you get your voting done out of the way in case something comes up to cause a lot of problems. For example, in the studio construction this afternoon, I was waiting very patiently for a process to be completed so that I could move on to the next step. And what was supposed to take 30 minutes, we ended up standing there waiting for staff at a certain improvement store to finish what they were doing for like 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half almost. Now, that was unexpected. You don't want to be caught in an unexpected situation come voting day. You just don't. Get your vote out of the way right now. It's just good advice. Now, that brings us to the international situation in which the Biden administration has everything but good advice. There are two major international situations that are escalating. I know you might think, well, how can they escalate anymore with just open, outright regional and global war? We're getting kind of close. According to a civil defense news source, after Russian nuclear drills on October 30th, the European Union has warned its citizens to stockpile food and supplies. Now, the article does a little bit of editorializing and says, in case of war with Russia. That's not necessarily clear, but in this particular case, the European Union has recognized that at some point they might have to go toe-to-toe with Russia. First of all, good. It's about time the European Union actually pulled their weight in defending Ukraine. That is important. I will remind the entire collective group that when the Ukrainians announced that via a treaty they would give up their nuclear arms that they stockpiled from the Soviet Union after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, that part of the treaty, in exchange for Ukraine giving up its nukes, was Russia not infringing on its territorial sovereignty. One of the central co-signers to said treaty were the collective might of the European nations. In fact, they are supposed to have equal footing in supporting Ukraine with the United States. Now, Biden has slow-walked extensive aid to Ukraine and have ended up basically through a very poor PR campaign and also through very scurrilous funding, kind of screwed over a lot of American support against this Russian aggression in Europe. So no one's really listening to him from Zelensky's office, and he's just kind of starting to do his own thing. On the flip side, in the Middle East, things are also escalating. Now, CNN reports that a high-ranking Iranian official has leaked that Iran is planning to launch a massive retaliatory attack on Israel within days. Reminder, Iran has, of course, launched 2 ballistic missile attacks against Israel, and Israel went into Iran the other day via their air superiority and took out a lot of surface-to-air missile sites, SAM sites, and a lot of other air defense sites. Now, Iran, because they're embarrassed, has suggested that the move to do is to retaliate against Israel, who has warned that if Iran decides to poke back this time, there will be no longer any oil, there will no longer be any kind of nuclear program in Iran. They'll wipe it out. Now, if our president wasn't so busy licking his own feet and sniffing glue, we might actually want to participate in some serious international situations here and calm things down. And that is going to play a very heavy role in this election, which is good because there's no one driving the boat at the moment. Well, there may not be anyone driving the boat, but that hasn't stopped the Biden administration from doing quite a wonder work with the demographics the Harris-Walz campaign needs to win in order to secure this election. We'll talk about that up next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
Attention.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Good evening and welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated. It's good to be with you, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, or whether you are one of the very special and important voting demographics that people vie for. We're going to talk a little bit about how to make something way worse. The answer is make stupid comments for no reason whatsoever. So Mark Cuban, which is how a lot of stories about stupid people start, has decided this election to be a campaign surrogate for the Harris-Walz team. Now, Mark Cuban has done some kind of cool things in the past. He was one of the good, I would say one of the good negotiators on Shark Tank. I know that he had talked about kind of an online pharmacy thing that at least he's setting up, kind of a neat idea. Oh yeah, that's it. Nothing else really about Mark Cuban. He owns a professional sports team, doesn't he? What does he own? Yeah, he owns the Mavericks. Okay, what, just the Mavericks? That's it? Oh, it's awful. It's embarrassing. Okay, so he owns the Mavericks. Yippee. So that's Mark Cuban. All right, whatever. He has decided that because he is, rich and on camera, that he'll be like the other rich people on camera and, be a big political campaign surrogate. The problem is he's really bad at this. So he went on The View. I don't know if you know this. Half of the clips Republicans are using for campaign ads against the Harris-Walz campaign come right now from The View. So maybe not a good idea to send Mark Cuban, who's not exactly known for saying hinged things, rather unhinged things, he says, over on The View. So good old Mark Cuban decides that, it's time to hop on there and wax eloquently. And he then proceeds to say that only stupid women support Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about how to make a bad statement worse. Step number 1, say the bad statement, saying never see Donald Trump around strong, intelligent women. Not a smart thing to say, because you might suggest that there are indeed smart, intelligent people who support candidates of both parties for different reasons. It suggests that some people may have different moral value structures and that perhaps they are supporting that candidate for a particular reason. Now, here's how you make a thing worse. Step number 2. You then double down before you've even finished the statement. So you say something controversial, not very intelligent, and then you say period, ever, just lock it down, take it to the bank. These are the kind of ad hoc statements that make it really difficult to walk backwards later or say, well, actually, I was kind of misspeaking. Kind of dangerous as a campaign surrogate to say such, because the internet absolutely lit up. Because if there's anything in the last couple of years that Republicans on social media love doing, it's someone saying that Republicans are ugly, and then there's usually at least 3 days of all of the Republican women posting pictures in dresses and bikinis, or that Republican women are stupid and really sad, and then they post pictures of the advanced careers that a lot of Republican women are in and how happy they are with their careers and with their families, etc. It's just not good to say all of these people are this, because then you open up an opportunity for the opposite side of the political spectrum to very much prove you wrong. And it doesn't stop there, because the entire last week of the Harris-Walz campaign, Biden got shivved and cooed out, has been just a summation of insulting entire swaths of people for no good reason whatsoever from direct mouthpiece surrogates or members of the Biden-Harris administration, the Harris-Walz, campaign surrogates. Here's Mark Cuban and Joe Biden. Just, again, listen to how a few seconds can completely ruin any momentum you might have been enjoying.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
So I'm chef's kiss. By the way, Donald Trump has actually pulled out the phone for Twitter again. Trump doesn't release everything he says on Twitter X these days. He pulled out Twitter for this, and it's great. I do have to read this to you because it's just very Trump style. remember I did say yesterday that if you actually did want to goad Trump into kind of changing his policies a little bit, then kind of attacking him in an ego-based fashion about things like what he does or doesn't believe is a good way to get him to kind of walk things back and put him on the defensive. If you just call him bad or stinky or evil in the right way, he will pimp smack you on social media. Here is what Trump said to about Mark Cuban today, right before the show began. Mark Cuban, a really dumb guy who thinks he's hot stuff, but he's absolutely nothing, is out there saying I don't surround myself with strong women. Actually, he's very wrong. I surround myself with the strongest of women, with the understanding that all women are great, whether strong or not strong. This guy is such a fool. He's constantly on television being critical. And for the only reason that I tuned him out completely while president, because he called incessantly. I told him very pointedly, look, Mark, I've got a lot of things to do. I just can't be taking so many pointless calls from you. And that's only halfway through. It's like, Mark, quit bugging me. In any event, that affected him greatly because he's a very insecure guy and a major loser. Always has been and always will be. Nobody likes him. Nobody respects him. This is where it just gets unhinged. I love it so much. And he's unattractive, both inside and out. He should go back to talk about the person he was forced to support because I didn't want it. Lion Kamala Harris. Also, just like out of nowhere. Also, he's got no clubhead speed. He's gonna take his golf game out as well. It's just fantastic. I mean, does it matter at all in this political theater? No. And then Trump says he might be surrounded by the strongest women in the world, including heads of countries who make Mark look like a baby. It is fantastic. It's just good. It's just good political theater right before the election. So what this has done, I've already said that the Harris-Walz campaign was on the defensive with 90s labor Democrats because of Kamala's prior statements on fracking, her prior Green New Deal, and the electric vehicle mandate, and things that have really aggravated those in the Rust Belt states. She was already on the defensive with Hispanic and with black voters because of the high crime rates that she presided over, as well as the illegal immigration, which is growing increasingly unpopular in those communities. To add insult to injuries, now we have added men with Tim Walz and other very creepy things. The White Dudes for Harris group has been running an ad that I will not be playing on the show because it is literally, it begins with a dude who is playing with himself while watching porn. And you can hear the sounds of the pornography in the commercial. And then a Republican legislator shows up and says he's going to ban porn or something, which is, I don't know why you would run this right before. I don't know why you'd run it at all, first of all. Number two, why you would run it right before the election, just creeping out everyone. Not a great appeal to like real men. We like bear hugs and porn. I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know. And then, of course, you have Mark Cuban and Joe Biden calling people garbage and the women in half the country stupid. Just stellar stuff. Well, speaking of stellar stuff, by which I mean really awful social media, we're going to talk to Jerry Lopez with some awful tweets up next. It's the Tony Kennett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Hey, Diamond lovers.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
It's time for our last round of awful tweets with Jerry Lopez in this studio. In fact, Jerry, I'm telling you, you're going to have to drive out to the new studio so we can do a couple of rounds of awful tweets in person, my man. What do you say?
Hey, we definitely got to do that. But more than that, hey, happy Halloween to anybody that's listening. I got my Willie Brown costume on. I got my desk accessory. Unfortunately, the Kamala mannequin head didn't come in on time, so I'm just wearing sweatpants this Halloween. But everybody be safe out there.
All right, let me just take off these glasses. All right, my JD Vance costume is ready. And with that, let's hop into some awful tweets. Now, you heard us earlier talking a little bit about Mark Cuban. I know that I know you love Mark Cuban, Jerry. I know he's just one of your favorites.
Listen, I don't even like that he's associated with Cuban. I'm that Cuban. I don't like, no, I'd rather, no. Yeah, it's horrible.
Well, he did kind of sort of try to vaguely almost walk back his Republican women are stupid thing today. Here's what he said. Let's clarify something. This is what I said during a conversation about why Nikki Haley was not active in his campaign. Then he quotes some kind of a quote. He says, I'm happy to clarify that I know many strong, intelligent women voting for Trump, including in my extended family. I'm not saying female voters are not smart, strong, and intelligent. And then he says, I know he's worked with strong, intelligent women like Elaine Chao, Kellyanne, Ivanka, and many others. And then he says, I stand by my opinion that he does not like being challenged publicly. Jerry, don't you love apologies that aren't apologies at all?
Yeah, it's almost like he community noted himself. Right? Like, I've never seen that, where he argued with himself within his own tweet. This is why I'm wrong. Also, I'm not changing. Like, you know what, Mark? Never change. Never change. Stay the same. Speaking
of really stupid campaign surrogates doing stupid things, so Ian Sams, who is really just desperately trying to lose the election for Harris-Walz, he posted two pictures of, again, Trump in the garbage truck and then Trump in the McDonald's saying, is Donald Trump the first candidate ever to have not one but two Dukakis moments? What do you think about that, Jerry?
It's a pretty stupid assumption. I do think whoever's been running Trump's campaign for the last 60 days has done a phenomenal job. I mean, this is in wrestling since he's gone completely babyface. Now he's a good guy. To see him in the dump truck, Vivek was the same thing. I think Vivek went and collected trash as well. They're capitalizing on all of these, and it's almost like watching wrestling now. It's awesome.
I think it's a really good way to put it. I have been thrilled to see that this campaign in the last, really any campaign that's run well, you love to see it because when a campaign does poorly, it's just cringy. Like, it hurts to watch. I don't care about the candidate as much as I like seeing things done well. And, there are New York Times columnists like Nicholas Kristof who aren't just interested in doing things not well. They're interested in doing things as poorly as possible. So Nicholas decided to write this tweet, this Washington Post article, saying, he said, a struggling Nevada mom suffers a miscarriage. Then the police show up and arrest her for manslaughter. Then she's sentenced to 2.5 to 8 years in prison. And then only when a pro bono lawyer steps up and appeals does a judge reverse the conviction and set her free to return to her children. This is family values? Think about that as you vote. Sounds like, kind of a horrible story about Republicans forcing mothers with miscarriages to be arrested, Jerry. But I don't know if you saw the community note on this, but Nick is just lying through his teeth. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at it. So not even just lying, just egregious, right? So community notes. She smokes meth while pregnant. Two crimes. Her baby was well past viability. Autopsy said 28 to 32 weeks. She admitted she did it to kill the baby. Law enforcement believes the baby was born alive and then killed. Every part of this goes against everything that he said, and I think the truth should be bipartisan, right? Now we're just leaving out important facts.
He's telling this story like it just happened yesterday. This was in 2018, right, before Roe v. Wade was even overturned at all. This is...
I mean, this lady had a miscarriage and then she got 3 years in jail. Come on, man. That doesn't happen.
It's just so dishonest. Well, the actual Washington Post is here for a little extra dishonesty. Did Biden call Trump supporters garbage? It all comes down to an apostrophe. Republicans have long strained for a new Hillary Clinton deplorables moment. Oh, see that? It's Republicans not wanting to be insulted that's the problem, Jerry. And then they say Biden's defense is entirely plausible. Huh. Oh, that sounds like some nonpartisan journalism to me.
Listen, in the words of what the left would call white privilege, I'm still trying to get over being called a breakfast taco by Jill Biden. Right? Jill Biden called us breakfast tacos years ago, and the buffoon in chief went up there and played Despacito. So yes, I'd rather be a garbage man than any of those things. But he did say it. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Oh, that's the truth. This next one up here is from the Democrats, and it's just special. It says, this is from the Democrat official Twitter account. And they say, friends don't let friends vote Republican. I'm sorry. What about all that inclusivity and all of that, welcoming everybody thinks a little differently, but, don't let friends near you vote Republican. That's, not so kind, friendly, and inclusive anymore, are they?
I mean, listen, this is the party that says they're for brown people, right? But the number one issue affecting brown people is lack of opportunity. Lack of opportunity comes from lack of education. Lack of education comes from failing public schools. So if Democrats are pro-brown people, wouldn't they be champion school choice? So they don't want anybody to win. Of course, don't vote Republican. Please be stupid enough to give us all your control.
Well, you and I both know that it gets way worse than that, because when you actually do have individuals who are, what's the correct way to say, of color, then, they'll call you either an Uncle Tom or they'll call you uneducated or whatever else. Well, this last one is just for you, Jerry. I know how excited you are. I got you a Tim Walz.
Answer there. The Daily Double.
Daily Double. Two awful Tim Walz tweets just for you.
Yes.
Okay. This is from originally. This tweet was up for a whopping 5 minutes before we took it down in embarrassment. He said AOC, because he was playing Madden with Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, can run a mean pick six, and I can call an audible on a play. We both know that if you take the time to draw up a playbook, you're going to use it. Jerry, does this hurt you like it hurt me?
Hey, how do you drop a pick six? Somebody might want to let the Colts know. Somebody's got to mess up for it to be a pick six.
I mean, come on, all of the great offensive plays that are about running an interception? Come on, that's like classic strategy right there. All right.
Listen, there's a floating pile of garbage called Tim Walz's football references. So this is
this man was a football coach, supposedly. Oh man, big yikes. All right, next one. So he redid the tweet.
He's heterosexual, but
well, he redid the tweet, and it's not any better, really. So this one, he actually kind of tried to manifest or whatever. He says, it's a tied game, 2 minutes on the clock. We've got the ball, and we're driving downfield. Even if we move 1 inch at a time, 1 phone call at a time, 1 door knock at a time, we will win this. And then he does some chorus girl kicks or whatever. Jeremy, just.
So was he an actual football coach? Because this guy sounds like he has nothing. He doesn't know anything about. If you move inch by inch, you're going to be 3 inches ahead, and it's third down now, buddy. What is he talking about? 2 minutes left on the clock. You got to drive down the field. You're not going inch by inch. Is everything they've said a lie, Tony?
I just gotta tell you, if I would have tried to run the ball an inch at a time at Shenandoah. It's like the end of the game. Coach Widener or Coach Schakowsky, they would have come out and beat me with metal rods. That's the worst advice ever. Move barely at all. Fantastic.
With 2 minutes left. Game's on the line, inch by inch.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it so much. This is just... Jerry, I need a second. Tell the nice people out there how they can get their awful tweets to us.
Hey, any tweets you see online, it doesn't have to just be tweets. Facebook posts, if anybody's still out there using MySpace, even little neighborhood apps, things we've gotten before. If you see any of these and they're so ridiculous that we should give these people a shout out, go ahead and DM it to me at Indy Spanglish on Twitter or at Tony at the Tonus on Twitter, and we're gonna post we'll talk about the best ones next Thursday.
That neighborhood post is a great idea, dude. Some of those people, they get vicious on the neighborhood social media apps. Oh, boy. Yeah, send us your junk. No, but oh wait, that was a terror tale. Please don't send us that. Send us the junkiest social media posts you find. Please don't send us any nudes. Please. That is going to backfire a lot really quickly. Okay, and with that, Jerry, thank you very much. We'll be back in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC.
1 in 6 seniors faces.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
I'm going to level with you. You just don't hate the legacy media enough. And the reason that you don't hate the legacy media enough is because there are still so many Americans out there who allow their TVs, their computers, their money to be given over to the coverage provided by outlets like the Washington Post and the New York Times, who in the last couple of days have decided to reach out via some very embarrassingly transparent reporters and ask a lot of pundits, reporters, hosts over on the right and ask them if they had engaged in, election interference because they had suggested that Democrats were good at ballot harvesting, which, according to very objective, unbiased sources, as many as there are, Democrats are very openly proud of being good at ballot harvesting, mainly that they like laws that states send ballots out to potential voters, and then Democrats go around and collect those ballots for the individual. So it's, you don't have to leave your house style voting, which makes it very easy for Democrats to collect votes from every registered Democrat. So there were several individuals on the right, for example, like Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, etc., who received basically advance warning. Washington Post actually reached out with like a couple of hours before the deadline of the piece. New York Times at least gave about 24 hours before the piece was posted. All because Media Matters, which is a left-wing advocacy group, had written that because conservatives talked about elections at all on platforms like YouTube or X or on podcasting services like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, that those platforms needed to ban conservatives. That's what Media Matters explicitly has pointed out time and time again. And like I've been on Media Matters before. They were very upset that I pointed out that, maybe daycares shouldn't be teaching sex ed to, toddlers, and they didn't care for that at all. But when it comes to Media Matters and advocacy groups being treated like experts, here's where the "you don't hate the media enough" comes into play. One of the core ways that unbiased outlets, with as many air quotes as I can throw into that particular phrase, unbiased outlets try to give you the runaround by citing experts. And when they cite experts, they go to an advocacy group and they say, okay, hey, what do you think about this? And then they will take the quote or whatever it is from the advocacy group and they will run it as though that is an objective statement from an unbiased expert in the field. And that is incredibly dishonest. For example, if I cite a right-wing source, my editors require me to say this is an adjective political watchdog group. The first adjective usually suggests what political leaning the group has. The second suggests the category of the watchdog. So if I'm citing a pro-life organization, I might say something like a conservative pro-life watchdog organization. This lets the reader know why I am citing the source. If you just say, according to experts, what are you talking about? That makes no sense at all. And by the way, we found out that that doesn't even work during times like the COVID-19 pandemic, when there were doctors that were coming out and saying, you know what, I don't think that the social distancing rule means anything at all. In fact, I think it's kind of garbage. And then people are saying, well, that doctor doesn't know anything. After all, they don't have 15 immunology degrees from this group of people that say exactly the same thing and also all vote the exact same way. It's a very garbage tactic. And it's one of the reasons why subscriptions to these magazines and newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Atlantic are plummeting so rapidly. And as we progress forward, you can see why so many individuals on the left are losing their ever-loving minds about the opening of kind of the Overton window and what you're allowed to say on social media. Because they say that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And by the way, there is a lot of misinformation out there. But there's something cool about misinformation getting out there. You have the opportunity to mock that misinformation to the high heavens. For example, when I come across someone on social media that is a major person that suggests, for example, that the earth is actually flat, that is a great opportunity to dunk on that person and that stupid idea. But if you ban certain ideas from social media, that dunking does not take place, and you end up telling people that instead, this is some kind of a true idea because no one will allow you to say it. The great thing about a marketplace of ideas among adults is that anyone can throw their idea, excellent or stupid, into the public market. And then I am able to praise or criticize that idea based on whether or not it's good. This, by the way, used to be my philosophy when I ran Chalkboard Review. As an education publication, our entire philosophy was that we would let you, as someone involved in education, whether you were a substitute teacher or a tenured professor or anything in between, you were allowed to write for our publication, and we would clean it up to make sure there were no sexist or racist slurs in the piece, or any cuss words or something like that, and then we would let you run it. And our audience would decide whether or not it was a good or a bad piece, and they would tell us in the comments and when they shared it. And this amazing thing happened. People started using ideas that were put forward in our articles. Universities began changing their policies. For example, after the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, Peter Kirsanow, reached out to Anderson University after our reporting on their segregated sessions and told them to knock it off because it was violating federal law. Or when several of our articles ended up on the floor of Congress or in arguments regarding school board policy. When you actually allow open ideas to propagate and you don't gatekeep what stories are allowed to get out there, you end up getting a very useful conversation about what ideas are worth having, and it prevents echo chambers. Jeff Bezos right now is trying to kind of rein in the Washington Post. Probably not going to happen anytime soon, because it's been allowed to fester far too long. And this is one of the reasons why, at least when we still consider mainstream media and how they are trying very desperately to influence elections, that I again make the appeal that anyone who tells you they are unbiased is lying to you. That does not exist. There is no such thing as unbiased reporting. Maybe if a newspaper were just to print the transcript of a school board meeting and nothing else, that would be an unbiased story. Other than that, I'm sorry. It's got bias. It has editorializing. One comment reached out, said you can always tell an editorial how biased an author is by what adjectives they use in the piece. And that is 100% true. So as we continue on through this last couple days of the election season, we continue to promise you that we're going to give you our unvarnished opinion. We're going to make sure that we separate that from the facts that we provide so that you know the difference. We're not going to try to shove both down your throat, and as Clint Eastwood said in my favorite movie, The Outlaw Josie Wales, or actually it would be one of the other guys in the movie, but it's a classic line. Don't pee down my back and tell me it's raining. I don't think that a media outlet should try to tell you that their opinions and their facts are the same thing. Not necessarily the best course of action. We will be back on Monday from the new studio. Take care, have an excellent weekend, and a good Friday. This has been the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal and nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC.
Xfinity here.